Hi guys, welcome back to another broadcast from the Citadel. It's not even December yet, but we already reached the 1000 subscribers mark. Thank you all so much to become part of this journey. This really pushes my motivation to continue with these videos. It's just so nice to see all of you appreciating my content. And yeah, I'm just glad you enjoy it too. And I mean, as I said like 100 times already, I would play this game anyway, and it's just so nice to share this with such a great community. So yeah, already back on the Citadel today, and we start right off with placing down some skyscrapers, because in the beginning I always have to make sure or to figure out what kind of inventory I have, and it's just a good way to plop down almost everything you have right from the beginning on. So I guess it's just a smart move to place everything down to get some kind of an overview and figure out what building fit to each other in a certain area, and that's exactly what we are doing here. I'm not gonna show you the whole process of it because it took really long and it's not too interesting to watch, but the main key takeaway is probably that I think I have figured out how the skyline in the front will look like. So this design for the city seems to be set, and that's actually a very important part of today's episode, because I want to start off with the downtown transit hub. And this seems to be my signature move to do, because as in Verville I always start off with public transit options, because that's usually how cities are growing in real life too, at least in Europe. And yeah, I just think it's a good approach to have this downtown hub fixed in place here, so I can work off from here. But maybe some general thoughts about the skyline. I was thinking that I want to create this kind of plaza in between the double-stacked highway and the downtown transit hub, with a lot of parking under the plaza and some not too tall buildings in that general area. But right behind the downtown hub I wanted to have really tall buildings already to kind of create this wall of skyscrapers. But they also shouldn't be too tall, because I want to grow the skyline in height when we move further back or closer to the mountains, depends how you look at it. And I know that Ghost in a Shell buildings, I don't know the author of them, but I'm already sure that these will be the absolutely tallest buildings in this city. And yeah, it's just gonna look insane because they are ridiculously tall. But I just think they're gonna look really cool when they are not even completely visible in the shots from the city. They seem like they are reaching right to the sky. And yeah, but that's something for a future episode. That's not happening today. Speaking about what's happening today, just as a heads up, I won't be able to finish this whole build in just one episode here. That's something I learned from the suspended monorail hub we built in episode 2. But I guess it's somewhat around 80% finished in the end. There's just some detailing missing, and you're never really finished with placing down billboards in this specific series. So yeah, just don't mind some unfinished looking areas. That's I'm totally aware of that. I was actually so pumped for this build here that I totally forgot how long I was recording already, and I built this elevated plaza I talked about before with the parking all together. But there's simply not enough time to show you everything in just 20 minutes, so I split that up and edit all the clips together so it makes some kind of sense. But I think I managed to separate these two builds pretty well, so that shouldn't be too big of an issue. Okay, so let's move on to the actual build for today. And you probably saw me right before that I was turning off the shadows for the game, because it was just really inconvenient to built in the shade of all these tall buildings. I could barely see anything. And yeah, so let's just quickly talk about how exactly this station will work. So I planned this station in 4 general layers. We have the very bottom layer where the entry hall will be. This one will be fitted with some really big TVs, which I imagined to show the timetables for the trains, obviously some shops, and more details about which I will talk later on. And so the second layer, as you can see here, consists of these 2 monorail tracks, which are actually 4 tracks. And you know the procedure, it's basically the same as in episode 2 again, just laying down the pedestrian path very close to the station tracks for the suspended monorail, so the people can actually board the system. Again, I placed down these green Japanese fences, which I flipped 90 degrees to the side, so pedestrians don't fall down to the street. And then they needed to reach these platforms somehow from the first level. And that's where I used these escalators, these animated escalators, which look really cool. And next to them I placed down some very wide stairs, and I adjusted the slope of the stairs so they fit the escalators next to them using PO. And as always, I copy-pasted as little as possible and as much as necessary. There was a separation needed for the entry hall to the street that's cutting right through the station. For that I used these grungy looking retaining walls. And yeah, I just remember a thing that will probably trigger a lot of you people. I didn't place down a lot of supports. I know this is something I definitely have to retrofit the station with. But yeah, as I said, 80% finished in the end, something around that. And another thing I'm not gonna be able to finish is the backside of the station. I will do that when I'm creating the downtown episode, because this belongs somehow together, I feel like. Now, a technique I really started to appreciate for creating some nice shapes for railroads or normal roads for that matter as well is to just copy paste a certain segment of that network and place that down in the right orientation where I wanted this network to go, and then start to connect up the whole thingy. And you can create some really smooth shapes and perfectly parallel curves that diverge in a very gentle manner. And yeah, maybe that's a nice tip for some of you. Okay, so I should probably continue explaining how the station will work, got distracted there. The second level was for the suspended monorail, and then we have the third level with these station tracks for LRT trains made by class. And as I'm just working on the platform here, I want to briefly talk about my decision to go for these LRT assets. I originally planned to use the Metro Overhaul mod, but I had a lot of issues with that. It's not specifically related to the mod itself, it's just that I want to have custom elevated stations. And I, for some reason, couldn't get this to work with the Metro Overhaul station tracks. I even talked to Bisquakelhausen and we tried to fix the issue, but I don't know, maybe I did something wrong or there seems to be really something off with these station tracks. But then I also tried the Bienvenue Metro assets made by Revo. I don't know, for some reason I also couldn't get this guy to work for elevated stations. I was literally spending 3 days in a row together with Revo, get all this stuff to work, and I'm really not sure if it was my mistake, because maybe I messed something up with the pedestrian path, like Akras told me in his live stream. You have to very specifically connect the pedestrian path to the station tracks, and even though I spent, I don't know, 30 hours on the issue, I couldn't get people to actually board the system. So I was really close to burnout, and I was just switching to these LRT assets, and they are just super convenient to use. They are very user-friendly, and I just created a custom station track which is non-terrain conforming, so it's much easier to use it in an elevated way. And that's exactly what I did for the 4th layer. So again, entry hall, suspended monorail, then LRT1 and LRT level 2. And in between we will have a connection over to the elevated plaza area. We will build it in the next episode. Okay, so in the meantime we moved on to the detailing part already. And as I said before, I wanted to have this massive screen in the entry hall. And I don't know, maybe in the future I will replace these displays with some kind of timetable, because right now it's just showing some advertisement. On the right and left side of the entry hall, I wanted to have these elevated paths for the pedestrians, and underneath them some nice shops. And I don't have a very big variety of assets yet, so I just used what I had in my inventory, which were these Japanese shops. I had to turn them into PO, adjust them a little bit so they fit under the path. And this was also a really cool design element in my opinion, to use CityWalk, CityWall's glowing light strip, which is basically just a network with his glowing cubes appearing as props on them. And as you will see in the next episode, I also wrapped this light strip around the elevated plaza, so it looks like this whole area was built in one go, and it just fits really nicely together, and also looks super cool by night because it feels so well connected. And another little detail I wanted to have is to create this little homeless camp right under the escalators, nicely covered from the rain, and I assume it's a bit warmer in there than outside. And even though it's a quite exposed place, I don't want to hide the social grievances from the public or from you viewers. I want to have this sharp contrast very well visible. As you can see, I had to make sure to close off the edges of the pedestrian paths so people wouldn't fall down. And there were some areas that were a bit trickier than others, mostly concerning the corners where these two barriers come together, but nothing groundbreaking thanks to the merge vertices function from the PO mod. Then now for the 3rd and 4th layer, I couldn't be bothered by creating even more of these moving escalators. So I just used a vertical invisible pedestrian path and placed these elevator props on it. And the usual drill, placing these concrete slabs underneath the tracks and the platforms so they are not transparent when looking from the ground level upwards. When I was placing down these concrete slabs, I realized that I should probably create some kind of peepholes, or however you want to call them. So when you look at this whole station from above, you can see all 4 layers at once. Yeah, that was a design element I tried to create somehow. And yeah, it was actually pretty insane how many of these concrete barriers I had to place everywhere. This took quite some time, especially when I had to adjust the shape of them to fit the stairs. Maybe something else that's worth talking about is how exactly I am creating these kind of buildings. So it's not like I'm planning them perfectly from the beginning. I have just a general idea how it should look like, and from time to time I make sure to make this kind of exclusion is the right word for it, I guess. And that was exactly what I was doing using these expressway pillars, making one constant horizontal line on the same height, so I could try to figure out what I should stack on top of that to create eventually a roof. The upper part of the station front facade I created with the expressway pillars as well. They are quite often used in this build. I use them in a vertical way and just place them right next to each one another. But for the side view I wanted to have windows as well, so we can actually see what's going on inside the station. And as you saw, I used these kind of zigzag windows before, but it was really hard to get them aligned perfectly, so I changed them to a flat piece of glass, which was much easier to handle. I still had to tweak the pillars a bit, but it eventually came together pretty well. Then I moved that window in place and I double or even triple plopped the acid to darken the window, so it's a bit more visible that there is something there, otherwise it looks almost too transparent. And now we moved on to the fine-tuning, I guess you could say. I used these Sydney ticket gates to create some kind of checkpoint when you want to board the public transport systems. And for that really authoritarian look, I also placed down a lot of these guard props which are holding weapons, and yeah, it just looks intimidating, I guess. And I plopped them next to every gate so that there are no people jumping over them, not paying for the train or whatnot. And two of the guards are headed to that homeless camp, probably up to no good. I always try to have a balance between small detailing and larger projects, so after these ticket gates and so on, I really wanted to finish the roof for this whole thing, and that was really tricky to figure out the design for the roof and how it's being held up there, what kind of supports I would need. And originally I wanted to have this very nice and interesting looking concrete roof with a lot of angles and edges, but then I realized you wouldn't really see that. Yeah, and that design just took way too long to realize, so I went for a flat roof that is tilted towards that plaza area, changed the color for the expressway pillars to black to have some kind of a contrast, and also triple plopped that piece of glass. Like for the suspended monorail hub, I created these kind of details for the waiting area or for the platforms, I guess you could say. And again, the usual drill, I wanted to have these copy-pastable kind of mini builds, so I used these modern looking benches and my light hook asset as a holder for the hologram timetable, and the light arch as kind of a frame for this larger holographic ad, in this case for Burger King. I haven't converted yet too many assets to these holographic looks, but yeah, it's basically the same technique as Black Fox uses for his Neo Hong Kong build, which is absolutely insane. I highly recommend you to check that out as well. Took me quite some time to understand how this process works for converting regular props to holographic ones. But yeah, in the next episode with the holographic or holo plaza, I wanted to say, we're gonna see a lot more of these converted assets. This Black Fox guy actually said he wanted to do a video tutorial about how to create these holograms with the adaptive shader mod, but it has already been quite a while he said that, and I'm not sure what's going on that front. So I will probably hit him up again and ask if the that's gonna be a thing or not, because maybe I'm gonna do something like that otherwise. So you guys also know what's going on here and how you can have these kind of holographic assets. Okay, so my next upload will probably be from Verville again, so stay tuned for that, especially all the people that are here on my channel for the Verville series. But guys, this has already been it for today. If you stayed until here in that video, definitely leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And thank you again so much for 1000 subscribers. Hope to see you all in the next one. Take care and goodbye.